Hey. All right. So I'm going to take a break from Revelations. And first of all, I just want to say how cool and fun this whole video making thing is. Um, I think my spiritual gift is primarily teaching and evangelism. So I'm using my gifts. That's exciting. There's a parable about the talents and something about one buried his talents, God took it away, and then one invested it. Anyways, the idea is that we're supposed to use the talents that God gave us. So hopefully this is um, bringing glory to God, and hopefully I'm using my talents and all the wisdom and stuff that being raised in the church and memorizing tons of verses. Hopefully it's paying off. Anyways, so before I go through more of Revelations, I wanted to tell my testimony because I know, like, I heard once whenever a pastor speaks or a new speaker speaks, it's really a lot more effective if they share their story first so people know where they're coming from. So I'll start from the beginning. I was born into a Christian home. My parents, this is so much easier to tell this on a video. I've shared it in front of churches, like thousands of people. I was so scared. All right, I was raised in a Christian home. My parents were actually kind of involved in a cult. I mean, it was Christian, but they were called the local church. Um, so they were involved in the Church of Santa Ana, it was called, in California. Um, they were just kind of a cult in that women had to dress super modestly, like only wear skirts, stuff like that. The main reason they were a cult was they taught that your biological family doesn't matter, your church family matters, and they kind of discouraged any communication with your biological family, which is totally wrong. So that was the environment that I grew up in and that my parents were in. Anyways, I don't really have a lot of memories of when I was like little. I remember we had this bunny. But when I was 6, my dad sexually molested me. And I really think it's possible that he was trying to rape me, or at least he confessed to my mom when he was in jail that his goal eventually was to do that, to actually commit incest. He was a sexual addict. And I'm still to this day not sure if he's Christian, because in my mind, I don't know how someone can be Christian and have an addiction, honestly. I don't know. I mean, it's still something that I, I'm curious about. So I don't know if my dad's saved. I don't know if he was then. I don't know if he is now. Anyways, they were heavily involved in the church. I mean, they would go door to door evangelizing every day. My dad like played guitar, and we'd have like family worship times. And then this happened when I was 6. So needless to say, it really affected my brother, I think, in his faith. Um, just seeing that hypocrisy, obviously. I was 6, so I didn't really think of the concept of them being hypocrites at that point. But anyway, so that happened. My mom called. I told my mom after something happened. She called Focus on the Family. Um, the guy on the phone said, I'm a mandated reporter. I have to report this now. So she did, or he did. And then she told my dad that she told, and he moved his stuff out because he knew he'd be getting arrested. He got a lawyer, and the lawyer got him off on a charge of lewd act with a child instead of sexual molestation or attempted rape. Um, anyways, so the lawyer got him to only serve a year, but then he got out on 6 months based on good behavior, which is unheard of. I knew a guy in my church, actually, another guy at church, that was convicted of child molestation, and he got like, I don't know, 10, 15 years in jail, prison. So my dad got out early. We all went to counseling individually. The therapist thought that my dad was healed and said that our family should reunite. I still have some anger with my mom for making that decision. I don't think he should have come back. The reason being, when after he did come back, something happened with him and my brother. He took a shower with my brother when my brother was like 14. I don't know any details, but I just know that happened. So that just goes to show, if any of you watching this know anything about child molestation or No child molesters, once they do it, it's very hard for them to be cured, I think. There's this video of this lady that was Miss America, and she talked about her dad, and he would do that with all four of his daughters. He would go in their room at night and, like, actually, they would have sex and stuff. Anyways, she thought he was better and stuff, but then even when he was like 70 or something, he did something else crazy. So it just kind of goes to show that, like, unless God does an incredibly radical work, they're always going to be sick like that. Um, so anyways, my family reunited. Then when I was 10, my parents divorced, and there was a number of events that led up to that. Not only did my dad do what he did, but he stopped wanting to go to counseling, my mom said. He was drinking more, like he would drink a beer or two at night to help him sleep, but then I guess he was drinking more before they divorced. What else? He didn't want to go to counseling. He didn't really want to go to church, which is weird because I mean our family was all about church. He I think he was getting more like manic-ish, like he might have had a manic thing, and he would stay up late like organizing their garage and stuff. Anyways, my mom just noticed a lot of odd behavior from him. So she talked to some pastors at church. Pastors, I said that weird. And they yeah, like she felt it was the right thing to get us out of there. So we stayed with her friend for a little bit, and then we actually stayed in a homeless mission. I have been homeless for 2 weeks. So we stayed at the Open Door Mission. It used to be ran by Pastor Bob. Open Door Mission. We were going to stay at the Liddy House, but because of my brother, we had to stay at the Open Door Mission because they didn't accept. He was too old or something. He didn't count his children. Anyways, we stayed at the Open Door Mission for 2 weeks. And I remember eating meals there and stuff. And I remember I was really mad at my mom during that time, even though like I knew my dad did what he did, but I was still mad. And I remember opening my Bible to her, and I thought I was saved at 14, but I don't know, maybe I was before then because I was reading all these verses to her about divorce, like what God has joined together, let man not separate, blah blah blah. Which I don't know if my dad like indoctrinated me with those verses and then I was spitting them out to my mom. But I was angry, I mean, like my dad did what he did, but it wasn't abusive per se. Like he made me feel special, if that makes sense. Like I was his princess or something and I got special privileges. There's two different ways that people usually go through sexual abuse. One is abuse, where the person threatens them, like, I'll kill you if you tell, or I'll hurt you. And then there's the other one, the other side, where sexual abusers will give gifts or special privileges or candy or ice cream or, you know, stuff like that. Mine was the easier side. Anyways, so I was mad that she was divorcing my dad. We stayed at the homeless mission. When I was there, I sang for a friend, and then my friend told Pastor Bob, who ran the mission, he's not alive anymore, but she told him that I could sing, so he took me with him to raise money for the mission. So I went around, I was like 10 years old, and I went around all these churches singing. Like I would sing Colors of the Wind by Pocahontas. I sang a lot of Christian songs, like Jesus Will Still Be There, People Need the Lord, People Need the Lord, at the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. My favorite one was Jesus Will Still Be There. It went, I don't know how I sang this when I was 10, but Jesus will still be there. His love will never change. Sure as a steady rain, Jesus will still be there. When no one else is true, He'll still be loving you. When it looks like you've lost it all and you haven't got a prayer, Jesus will still be there. So obviously that song meant a lot to me at the time because I lost my dad. My family was, falling apart. So I might have been saved at that point, but I also heard a theory from a pastor. If you're saved as a child, you also need to get saved as an adult because, I don't know. You're like two different people as a kid and as an adult. So I understood it back then, but anyways. So they divorced. We stayed in the mission. Then we went back to our house. Um, then we had to move out of our house because my mom couldn't afford rent. So we lived in an apartment, but it was right by my school, so it was nice. And I could walk to school. And I had a friend nearby. And then we lived in like low income housing because my mom was a single mom. I made a lot of friends with like other kids who came from broken homes or like their family had issues. So because of that, I got in kind of with the wrong crowd and the wrong friends. I was kind of crazy in junior high. So this was like seventh and eighth grade. I shoplifted a few times. I remember stealing cigarettes because obviously we weren't old enough to buy them. I tried smoking when I was like 12. I didn't like smoke a lot, but I smoked. Um, Shoplifted three times. One time, me and my brother got caught. Twice I got caught, actually, which is probably good. The Lord disciplines those he loves, right? One time I shoplifted like 5 packs of cigarettes and I got caught. I think both times I just served community service. Anyways, I was just angry, I think. I mean, obviously, lost respect for my parents because their marriage didn't work. So I had a hard time respecting authority. I was cussing a lot at that time. I remember I wrote letters to friends. One of my letters got found by the vice principal and he sent a copy to my mom and there was like horrible, like all kinds of cuss words in it. That was bad. I was like the leader of my gang, kind of. I mean, we were just girls, but we would like sneak out and write on people's mailboxes with crayons. I don't know why. One time, I don't even know why, but we took ketchup and mustard and put it all over my neighbor's shed for no reason. And then the next day, I saw them like cleaning it off, like hosing it off, and I really felt bad. And I'm sure, I don't know if I was saved, but my conscience was like, you should go help them clean it up, but I didn't. Anyways, what else did I do? We would egg houses. I didn't do that too much because I heard it was really bad for the paint on the houses. So ketchup and mustard was better. And crayons. What else do we do? Oh, my 13th birthday, my brother's 4 years older, so his friend was older. I was 13, he was 17. So he had a bunch of excess alcohol at his house or from a party that he gave me and some friends, and we got totally wasted. I mean, I was like drunk beyond belief when I was 13. We drank Mickey's beer and then aftershock liquor, which is pretty strong. I think it's like, I don't even know, it's like 80%. I don't know. We drank a lot. It was bad. I don't know how I didn't die because that night we had to go down to the basement, down some stairs, and I don't know how I didn't trip over them and like die. But so that was my junior high years. Really wild. Did a lot of stuff. Kind of learned the hard way. I think I learned early on about alcohol. I didn't really have a desire to get drunk really after that, ever. I think there was only a couple times in my adulthood that I got drunk. Yeah. Anyways, so I learned a lot of stuff young. I was going to youth group this whole time in junior high, which is why I think I have a passion for working with junior hires because you just never know. I mean, I remember going to junior high camp. I was in a youth group. We'd go every Wednesday night. I remember playing football, catch with people. I remember doing prayer requests. So, I had one foot in the world and one foot in church and God and stuff. So I was just confused. So, anyways, at 14, my mom consulted the pastors at church about she wanted to move me away from my dad, but also to California to be by her mom. We were in Nebraska at the time. We moved to Nebraska when I was 10. When I was 14, she moved me back to California to be with her mom. And so, what started the change, metamorphosis, butterfly transition for me was I went to the Harvest Crusade, which, if any of you are watching this, live in California, you know what that is. It's at the Angel Stadium, like the baseball stadium, and they invite some famous Christian bands every summer, like Newsboys are good, and they're there a lot. And Greg Laurie speaks, and he does like an altar call at the end, and people come down on the field and stuff. So I think I went down on the field. I think I did. And I got some of the Christian music like Jennifer Knapp, Supertones. Jennifer Knapp was really um, huge for me. I mean, I listened to that CD like over and over. Music was big for me. Before that, it was Mariah Carey, which was bad. Like Satan sneaks in little tiny ways, and I think all of the like just her all her songs are about dating and guys. I think that made me kind of like focused on that too much. Like my first boyfriend, I was like 12. Anyways, um, yeah. So Jennifer Knapp, I was listening to that a lot. Really like drew me close to God and got me thinking about Him. And my grandma was just like, I mean, she didn't talk to me that much, but I remember she would tell me a lot, you're special. God created you special and He has something for you to do that no one else can do. So that was the first time I really had a family Christian influence being an older kid. Like my dad's family in Nebraska were all Catholic, so, you know, I didn't have that. So finally I had my mom's mom, my grandma, to lead me in the Christian path. So that happened, and then I started going to this church called Main Place Christian Fellowship that was right by my high school. And, hold on, I'm thirsty. All right, I was going to this church called Main Place right by my high school. And we were in a service and we were worshiping and we sang the song Shout to the Lord. And in that moment, it's like the light bulb turned on. Like my whole life, I had been told about God. I had memorized verses. I went to Awanas fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. I mean, I knew a lot of the Bible already, had a lot of verses memorized. I'd say half the verses I memorize now were I'd memorized then in Awanas in grade school, which is why I really want to serve and help with Awanas with kids now. But the light bulb went on when we sing that song. It's like I just realized like God created the world, it just hit me. And it was like if he created the world, then he deserves my praise. He deserves my me serving him and letting him lead my life. So, in that moment, I was just like, all right, I'm yours, God. Take me wherever you want. So he did. About 6 months later, I went to India on a missions trip with that church, and my youth pastor asked me, where should we go on our missions trip? And I was doing Model United Nations in my high school, which was like a debate program, but it was like the United Nations. We had committees, mock committees that we would do on the weekends. I was representing India in a weekend conference, and I was in the human rights committee, and one of our topics was religious intolerance. So I was researching it, and I found that people in India burned Christians a lot. So I was like, oh, well, Christians might not want to go there because they might think it's too dangerous. So I was like, we should go there. Running right into the fire. I've always been kind of a thrill seeker, daredevil. I got into a crazy bike accident when I was 8 because of that. That messed up my neck. And it's still messed up. But yeah, I really enjoy challenges and, excitement and stuff. So we went to India. We were the first team to go with YWAM Youth with a Mission to India, so they videotaped our whole trip. They did a promo video of us that they showed at a state youth conference, which was really cool because then like a year later we went to the state youth conference and they were showing that video, and we walked into like the conference, and like there I was on the big screen, like because they interviewed us and stuff. That was so cool. So I went to India. They taught me at the YWAM camp in Los Angeles how to do magic tricks. Originally it was just supposed to be for the kids of each church, but then I did it in front of the churches. We visited churches in Guwahati, India. We landed in Calcutta, stayed there one day, and then went to Guwahati, which is in northeast India. So I did these magic tricks. Some of them were see if I can remember them. I don't have the props, but one was like a bag. It was like a black bag on the outside, and so you're supposed to start it off with like, look at this bag. It's black and it represents. No, nope. We started with this. We started with a speckled bag and it had spots on it and it was like this represents our lives and we're speckled with sin, like we're tainted, And then you turn the bag inside out and then it's black and it's like but Jesus died for our sins and he took our sins away. And then you bring it inside out again, but there's actually two bags inside. So then it's white and then people are like, "Whoa, where did the spots go?" And then it's like Jesus died for us and then he made us white as snow. So he took away our sins. Anyways, that was one of the tricks. Another one was like Jesus feeding the 5,000 with these little fish and loaves that I had. I'm not going to explain all the tricks, but I did magic tricks and it was really cool. I told my testimony in one of the villages. That was the first time I told my testimony because I had just gotten saved. And I remember I shared the part about my dad sexually molesting me, and my youth pastor was in the audience, and the look on her face was just so like compassionate. It really made me want to cry, and I was like thinking like, no, don't look like that because I don't want to cry up here like talking. But we always had a translator with us, so they would translate whenever we shared stuff. I learned sign language to shout to the Lord, which I could do now, but I've done it on other videos. Um, so we did that at some churches. That was really cool. Um, okay, so India. We got back from India. Um, I didn't really walk perfectly. I mean, I still had some boyfriends spattered throughout high school. Just times where I slightly messed up. Didn't stay on the path, but everyone does. But then there was this screw up my sophomore year. One of my coworkers, a guy I smoked pot with, it was my first time doing that, smoking pot. I think we did twice. Anyways, my youth pastor found out about it and she kicked me off of all the teams. I was on like the missions team, leadership, worship. So she was really upset about that. And she actually said to me she thought I wasn't saved because I smoked pot. Which is funny because she apologized. I think it was 3 years ago. I went back to the church and she said, "I'm sorry for saying what I said. I realized King David fell and he was a man after God's own heart, but he committed adultery with Bathsheba and murdered her husband," right? So I was like, thank you. Christians screw up too, and it happens because we're human beings and we sin. And we still, Romans 8 talks about the struggle of the spirit versus the flesh. We can choose to walk in the flesh or we can choose to walk in the spirit. So I messed up sophomore year. She said that people started spreading rumors about me at that church. It was kind of a small church, so we left because that wasn't cool. They just didn't really understand grace, just very judgmental. So I've been there, done that. I know how churches can be for anyone who has church baggage. Um, so then we went to Mariners, which was a huge mega church in Irvine, California. I mean, massive. This church is like 10,000. Right now, it's probably like, I don't know, 30,000. It's huge. So we started going there, very much more focused on the grace of God and that God loves us no matter what, which if we're saved, He does. Um, I mean, we still need to confess our sins. But anyways, so I got involved in that youth group. I went to Taiwan with them on a missions trip when I was 16. When I got back from that missions trip, I shared my testimony in front of the youth group. And for whatever reason, one of the youth leaders thought that I should share in front of the entire church, which, wow, I was so nervous because each service was like 2,000 people. And I shared my testimony in 4 services, so it was 8,000 people. But I just shared a very basic, like I said, what happened to me, that I smoked pot with that guy, and then how my youth pastor said I wasn't saved. So my testimony was basically like, nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. That's a verse that Paul says. No matter what we do, God loves us. If we're a child of God, we're always a child of God. We can't lose our salvation, blah, blah. So that's what I said. But man, I was so nervous. I remember I was like shaking so bad that I had a piece of paper in my hand. And I was shaking so bad I could barely read that paper. And after I shared at a Saturday night service, and then Sunday morning, Kenton Beshore was like, make sure you guys listen really closely because she talks really fast, which I still do. That's just how I talk. But that was funny. Like, it wasn't necessarily because I'm nervous. I just talk fast. I don't know why. Um, Anyways, so that was exciting. I went to Mexico with them a few times on my spring break on mission trip. We did VBS. Had a great time in that youth group. I loved Mariners. I somewhat felt out of place there because most of the kids were like rich kids, and then my mom was a single mom, so like socioeconomically we're kind of on different levels. But oh well, I still made friends, whatever. Um, and then I was in the small group with this girl, Janelle, and she was going to be going to Biola University. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, I knew I wanted to go to a Christian college, but I don't know where exactly. So, and she was enrolling in this honors program, Torrey Honors Institute. So I applied for that and I got in. We were the top 5% of Biola. It was an all right program. I actually didn't like it most of the time because it was a lot of reading and I didn't like being a slave to the library and reading 24/7. I wanted to like hang out with people, but I didn't have time for that. So I was just reading like all of college. I just lived in the library. It was horrible. And I was an English major, so that was a lot of reading too. But I joined the choir. That was cool. I was in the Biola chorale, and that really like brought a lot of joy to me because music has always really just it just makes me come alive. It's great. And the people in the choir were so on fire, you know, like the whole phrase preaching to the choir. It was just amazing. The first time I sang with them, I felt like I was singing with the angels in heaven. I also found some friends to play basketball with a lot in college. That was cool. We played intramural basketball. The first day of college, one of my classes, the teacher asked us to go around and say something we were passionate about. And I said basketball. And this other girl said basketball. And then after class, she came up to me and like, oh, did you say basketball? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, we should play sometime. So we got this like basketball group going on. That was cool. Um, but yeah, college was interesting. Choir was fun. Basketball was fun. I had a hard time in Tory in some of my English classes and it was really stressful. I actually had a lot of anxiety in college. Not a lot, but I remember throwing up from anxiety a few times because it was just like so much pressure. Like I had to get A's or B's or else I would lose scholarships, stuff like that. Anyways, I graduated with like a 3.5 GPA. Not amazing, but it was fine. High school I had a 4.3 because of AP classes, but whatever. So I graduated. That was cool, but with a bachelor's in English, I didn't know what I would do with it, and I still don't really know. I mean, my goal was to teach high school English or to become a writer, which, I mean, my blog I'm writing, but I'm not getting paid for it. But I would love to, like, publish a book someday. I don't know. Who knows? Um, but anyways, so I got my bachelor's in English. Then I was working. I had like three jobs after college. I was working at Barnes& and Noble, some retail place, and with kids. I did an after school program. Then I did a couple summer camps with kids with the Salvation Army. That was really cool. Help lead like worship with kids and do Bible studies and stuff. We got to go to all the theme parks all over Southern California. So like I got paid for free. I got to go to like Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, the zoo, all the water parks. Anyways, cool jobs, very cool jobs. I taught one year actually at a private Christian school. It was called Cardin Heights of Orange. I taught junior high English, but it was private, so I didn't need a credential. And that was cool. Classroom management was kind of hard. If any of you are interested in teaching, the method that finally worked for me was writing the student's name on the board if they were talking, and then I would put a check next to their name if I caught them talking again. Then they had to stand from PE for 10 minutes and copy 10 words out of the dictionary. So that's what I finally did. But I think I like really reached those kids in a lot of ways. I would do some religious stuff like poems, even though it wasn't really a religious school. So, hopefully I planted some seeds. God willing, He waters them. God, may they get saved. Amen. I loved those kids. They were really, really special. The next year I worked at a preschool with 1 year olds and realized that I really like toddlers. And I'm about to work at a preschool starting next week with toddlers, and I'm excited about that because they're so cute at that age. Um, Let's see. After the preschool, I worked on a cruise ship in youth entertainment and worked with kids like doing games and stuff. I did the cruise to Mexico 4 times and the cruise to Alaska 12 times. Yeah. Then man, I have a long testimony. I'm already at 30 minutes. Okay. Sorry, the story's not over. So I worked on the cruise ship. Ah, man. Such a long life. I'm only 28. It's crazy. Worked on the cruise ship. Then I was emailing my brother about getting an apartment with him. So I moved in with my brother in Nebraska. That was cool, but I only lived with him for a month and then met my last husband, and uh, so I was with him for 2 years. Then we had our ups and downs, but he was Christian. He was a good guy. Anyways, he died 6 months ago, um, and this is kind of a really crucial part of the story because after he died, I just felt the sense that God wanted me to, or whatever, to tell his story. So he had a really hard life. He was sexually abused when he was in high school. He had supposedly the worst case of PTSD that his psychologist had ever seen. Um, what else? He was sexually abused. Yeah, just went through a lot of stuff. His upbringing was kind of hard. His parents fought a lot. He married a very difficult person in his first marriage, had kids with her. She took his kids away from him when they were like 2 and 3 years old, a boy and a girl. And then he started taking medication for anxiety and depression. When I knew him, when I met him, he was taking testosterone shots because the stress of his ex wife killed his testosterone. So he was taking synthetic testosterone. He was taking something for depression and something for anxiety, Klonopin for his anxiety. He's taking Cialis for circulation. What else? And then the day he died, he took some antibiotics because he sneezed a lot and he thought he was sick. Anyways, then he went out drinking with a coworker, and the mixture of the alcohol with the he was also taking methadone to get off the Klonopin. For some reason, he thought getting off on one thing to get off another would help. But the methadone mixed with the alcohol is what killed him. So that was 6 months ago. So that's his story. Really, really hard life. And it was really bittersweet when he died because, obviously, bitter because, we were so close. I mean, we hung out like 24/7, like we were totally best friends. But the good thing was, like when a horse has a broken leg and he gets put out of his misery, and they shoot the horse. It's kind of like that. Like his life was so hard. I mean, he just had so much like pain and depression and just I mean it was still hard like when he was with me, just so many things like the visitation with his kids, like paying child support. I was just glad that he was finally done with everything. And I was so happy that he was in heaven and happy with God finally. So he died. Um, then after he died, I actually got a life insurance check for him because he listed me as his beneficiary. So with that check, I went to Australia, and that is the most recent part of my story. I went there for a month. My goal is to live there, but I ran out of money pretty quickly with renting cars and stuff. Um, so I only stayed there a month, but I went because Hillsong, I've always been so obsessed with Hillsong's music for like 14 years. Um, and so I wanted to go to their church, so I did. It was cool. I mean, they're really just amazing, amazing church. Great pastors, great worship. But I mean, when I went there in person, it was pretty similar to my church, Mariners in Irvine, California. I mean, both are great churches. And I have a great one out here now called Vineyard. It's pretty good too. Um, but yeah. So I went to Australia. Then I've been all over the place. It's crazy. So then my friend Gabby, on Facebook, she was chatting with me and was like, "Hey, when are you gonna come live with me in Kansas City, Kansas, or Missouri, whatever?" And I was like, at first I was like, "Haha, you're right," but then I was like, "Okay, why not?" And I really felt God telling me to go to Kansas City just as much as I felt him telling me to go to Australia. So I booked a flight back home to California, got my car back from a girl I'd loaned it to, drove out to Kansas City, which was like, a good 3 or 4 day trip with my mom. And then she flew back to California. And then I stayed with my friend Gabby for a month. And then I met my husband, who I'm married to now. I met him on plentyoffish.com. So you can meet people online if you're single. And he is so amazing and such a blessing and a great Christian guy. And I am so lucky. And I was on a Bible study 2 nights ago. I joined a women's Bible study at my church vineyard. And one of the questions was, has God brought you full circle in anything? And I was like, totally. And I shared this at the Bible study. Like, he's totally brought me full circle um, because I was with Roger and then I lost him. And then now I'm with Ben. And he's just, so much like Roger. But the situation is so much better because Ben doesn't have kids. Roger had kids, and that was kind of hard. Um, and we might have our own kids, possibly. We'll see. But yeah, so that's where I am now. I'm married to Ben, and it's great. And who knows what the future holds? Uh, our goals are possibly to move overseas, maybe go back to Australia. My visa's good till December. Maybe check out Perth. I heard it's nice weather there. Sydney was kind of humid. I was in Sydney, but who knows? Maybe go to China. I mean, I've always kind of wanted to be a missionary, but I pictured being a missionary with a husband and like, doing worship in churches and preaching. Roger, who died, my ex-husband, always said that I'd be the next Joyce Meyer or something. Who knows? Obviously, I like to talk, uh, but it's different on this than like on a stage. I get like super nervous, but God would give me the strength. Um, I used to think I'd be the next Mariah Carey, so I'd love to be like. Well, I've just kind of recently tried writing songs. When I was 14 and I got saved, I was writing a lot of songs. And now I'm starting to again, which is exciting. And Ben plays guitar, so we're kind of like, I don't know, winging it and trying to figure out how to write songs. So that's where I'm at now. Um, we're thinking about having a kid, possibly, if God wills it. We're praying about that. So, yeah, so thanks for listening to my story. That is my entire life, 28 years. Crazy. Um, if you're a Christian and watching this, please pray for wisdom for us about, the timing on having a kid, where to live, job situations, ministry, just that God would lead us to ministries and jobs that we love and enjoy, and just how we can serve and witness. We've thought of going out street evangelizing. Ben wants me to do that. I'm a little scared, but just that God would open doors. I'm open to whatever He wants us to do because I am God's servant, God's slave. So who knows? Okay. I think that's good. Now that anyone watching this just knows my life story. um, anyways, I hope God uses it to bless you and um, helps give you peace about your own life story or perspective. Or if you're not saved, I pray that hearing my story helps you get saved. One last thought. We read the book Augustine's Confessions in college. Before Augustine got saved, what did it was he listened to a lot of testimonies from a lot of different friends. So if you're not saved, I recommend looking up testimonies. Today we're watching Jason Upton's testimony, Misty Edwards, Kim Walker. Yeah, just watch different people's testimonies, you know? And then decide for yourself if you want Jesus in your life. All right. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're edified, and may God bless you. God bless. Bye.